I recently rewatched the first Parent Trap film. It was as great as I remembered. I then watched for the first time the second film, and while it was an okay film on its own, I thought it was a really pointless sequel. But I decided to watch the third film, The Parent Trap 3, and it's even worse than the second film. On its own, I guess it's fine, but it is so pointless. It doesn't feel like a sequel. Yes, I want to know what happens to Sharon and Susan after the first film, but the characters become really boring. And it just feels like it serves no purpose. So it's not a great film, but nevertheless, I guess if you're curious about it, I'd say check it out, but I don't think it's necessary. This was released in 1989. It's directed by Mollie Miller, written by Jill Donner, and we have a cast including, of course, Hayley Mills as Susan and Sharon. We also have Barry Bostwick, Patricia Richardson, Leanna Creel and Monica Creel, and Joy Creel as Lisa, Jessie, and Megan Wyatt. I'll talk more about those characters in a moment. And yes, the one thing that kind of kept me interested was Hayley Mills. Had she not been in this, I probably would have watched it at some point, but even though the second film was just not that great, because of Hayley Mills, I decided to watch the third film. And yes, she's good in it, of course she is. And yes, it's relatively okay getting to know what happens with Susan and Sharon in the next stage of her life, in the next part of her chapter. But honestly, as characters, they're really not that interesting. At least compared with the first film, they're just kind of bland. And the only, I guess, fascinating thing is that they are identical. The story itself revolves around a widowed father and his 3 triplets. So they're really stepping up the identical aspect here, because we have 3 identical triplets now rather than twins, which, yeah, fair enough. If you're going to do a third film, let's amplify the identical aspect and things that they could do with that. I don't think that was a bad decision. And Jeffrey is in a relationship with a woman called Cassie, and Jeffrey also meets Susan. And I don't want to say any more than that, but I will say that there is a strong relationship theme throughout it. And yeah, it's fine. It as a story on its own. Let's forget that this is a sequel. Is it a well-written narrative? For the most part. There are some things that I think don't make the most sense. They're not the most believable, even within the context of the story, but nothing too extreme. It's an okay narrative. Do I think it's a worthy sequel following on from the first 2? No, I don't. It just feels completely pointless. As I said, this is very much just telling a story that kind of involves Susan and Sharon, and as characters, they're just not that interesting. They're absolutely fine. I don't dislike them. There's nothing wrong with them. But following on from their stories, their story in the first film was obviously very fascinating. Their stories in the second and third films just kind of average. So I still feel like it was completely pointless, but a story on its own, it's absolutely fine. I think, and this is just purely speculation, I feel like they wanted to tell this story, but the story on its own is not the strongest. It's fine, but it's not the most unique or fascinating. So they threw in Susan and Sharon to obviously market it as a Parent Trap film. I could be wrong. Maybe they sat down and said, we want to tell a third Parent Trap story. How are we going to do this? But I feel like they could have come up with something better. I feel like they could have had something far more fascinating for the characters of Sharon and Susan. So if the latter was their approach, it feels really lazy. If it was the former, then yeah, fair enough. You got to market something in a way that will be at least moderately appealing to people. So I don't begrudge them that if that's the case. Do I recommend it? I have no idea. I absolutely have no idea. If you're a fan of The Parent Trap, sure, check it out. If you're just looking for a good film, then yes, it's watchable. It's nothing unique, it's nothing special, but it's absolutely fine. So if you're curious, check it out. If you're not missing out on much. All of that being said, I will be watching the fourth one. The fourth one is Hawaiian something, I think. I haven't looked ahead. I didn't look ahead with this one or the second one. I went into both of them with no knowledge of what to expect, and unfortunately, neither of them really delivered. And I'll go into the fourth one in the same way. The Hawaiian Honeymoon is what it's called, Hawaiian Honeymoon. So I'll go into that with no knowledge as well, and we'll see what happens. But for now, I can at least say I have finally seen Parent Trap 3. It's not a great film. It's an okay story on its own. It's not a good sequel. it's a shame because Sharon and Susan had so much potential for characters. There are so many other stories they could have done with them. And at least from my perspective, I just feel like they've let the characters down. It's very mediocre and it still just feels a little pointless.